Welcome back to the water cooler, everybody. Hey, look, normally Anna Perez joins me, but alas, she's nowhere to be found today. Maybe she's in some sort of secluded location after yesterday's deep state pedophile connect the dots segment. But on a serious note, don't worry, she's fine. You can get your Anna fix. I put that in quotes, by the way. Tomorrow, she's going to be back with me here in studio. Everything, by the way, A-OK. She's fine. ... at least for now. So let's talk about secession, shall we? Maybe I can pronounce it first. It seems like there's more talk of it in different locations every day. The latest is in Southern California's San Bernardino County, home to 2 million people. The county's Board of Supervisors voted to add a measure to the November ballot that could include secession from California. Here's more from an outfit called Straight Arrow News.
Secession is brewing in one California county. Voters in November will decide if they want local leaders to look into what benefits would come from breaking away from the state. San Bernardino County covers more than 20,000 miles. It's the largest in the country. But because the area is just a county, not its own state, officials there want to know if secession would give them access to more revenue and federal funding. Here's the proposed question they'll be voting on. Do the citizens of San Bernardino County want the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors to study all options to obtain its fair share of state and federal resources, up to and including secession? Let's clarify. Even if the measure passes, it doesn't mean secession is a done deal. It just means the option will be looked at more seriously. It's far from the first time the topic has been raised. In 2018, there was a proposal to split California into 3 entities, but it was struck down by the state Supreme Court before making it to the ballot.
That's Straight Arrow News, not LGBT news. And to be clear, seceding from the state would require approval from the California legislature and the U.S. Congress. Of course, the secession movement in Texas has been building for quite some time, and this deep state, immoral, historic, despicable FBI raid at Trump's Mar-a-Lago home this week is giving the folks in Texas more ammunition, so to speak, in their fight for secession. Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, writes this, quote, "The raid on the residence of the former president is yet another sign that the federal system is I can't even say that word. Irreparably broken. I hate that word. Irreparably broken. I hate that word. I just hate it. The weaponization and politicization of the federal instruments of power are no longer the worst kept secrets in American politics. It is now being broadcast across hundreds of channels of pro-federal propaganda with the not-so-subtle message, if you don't play ball, you're next." And by the way, Miller goes on to call for Texas Governor Greg Abbott to hold a special legislative special session to enact legislation that, in essence, would give the people of Texas a choice on secession. Well, joining me now is indeed Daniel Miller himself. He's also author of the book Texit, Why and How Texas Will Leave the Union. By the way, this is a book approved by Anna Perez, who absolutely loves it. Daniel, good to see you, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
And I hate that word, but that's a whole nother psychological issue.
Just for you, David, I will leave irreparably out of all future statements.
Great. Every time I want to say that word, I'll defer to you, and you can just say it for me. So this FBI raid against Trump, expand on this statement, because you believe Texans are receiving a message here loud and clear.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's true. The raid on Mar-a-Lago should have surprised absolutely no one. I mean, we have seen a politicization of the the apparatus in the federal system for a long time, whether it's the Internal Revenue Service or whether it's the Department of Justice. We only have to go back to the Obama administration and look and see exactly what they did to persecute the Tea Party organizations with these audits, these investigations, on and on and on. But this goes back for quite some time. But I think the message to Texans is very clear right now. When they are willing to spend our tax money to hire 87,000 new IRS agents and make sure they are fully armed with plenty of ammunition and plenty of weapons, but we can't even get new Border Patrol agents to stem the invasion at the southern border. That's a very clear message to Texas right there.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I want to get to the devil's advocate argument in a moment regarding Texas and secession, but let's go to what you're saying. You go right to Article 1, Section 1. of the Texas Constitution. You said this before. This is the quote from the Texas Constitution. Texas is a free and independent state, subject only to the Constitution of the United States, and the maintenance of our free institutions and the perpetuity of the Union depend upon the preservation of the right of local self-government, unimpaired, to all the states. So,
Correct.
I mean, I get exactly what you're saying because it's pretty clear right there. So that's the difference, is what you're saying regarding Texas compared to maybe some other states. You've got it embedded in your Constitution, but there's going to be legal challenges to that, clearly.
Well, look, this is really a political question, not a judicial question, and this is the point that we have made for many years, is that no state enters the Union with a special set of rights or circumstances. So, and it's referred to as the equal footing doctrine, right? So all states enter with the same rights. So when you look at this case, we obviously point to Article 1, Section 1 and Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution. But when it comes to any state, the U.S. Constitution is abundantly clear. Article 1, Section 10 lists everything that states are forbidden from doing, right? If a state cannot do it, it is in Article 1, Section 10. And what's not in there? Withdrawing from the Union. It's not forbidden to the states. And if you go to the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, it very clearly and explicitly reserves any powers not granted to the federal government or prohibited to the states and the people. So we use that when we talk about this issue to show people that the conduit from the U.S. Constitution to the state constitution. And it's important that we also point to the state constitution, not just because of Article 1, Section 2 talking about it as an inalienable right, but because you have a state like Nevada that has an actual prohibition against leaving the Union in their state constitution. Mm-hmm. So the state constitution does matter, especially in those trigger criteria. But while Article 1, Section 1 that you read off there is important, I think the most important thing that all states need to look at is what it says in our Constitution in Article 1, Section 2, reserving it as an inalienable right.
Okay, you talked about that. You've also mentioned the 10th Amendment. Let me bring up this. This is the devil's advocate argument. And you know
Sure.
the deal. They're going to go to Article 4. This is U.S. Constitution. They're going to go to Article 4, Section 3. Let me bring this up. New states, this is in the U.S. Constitution, new states may be admitted by the Congress into this union, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state, nor any state be formed by the junction of two or more states or parts of states without the consent of the legislatures or the states concerned, as well as of the Congress. How do you not necessarily work around that, but how does that factor into this big mix? Because this is the other side of it. This is what they're saying, that you're going to get Trump there. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm saying that is part of what they are saying.
Sure. Look, that particular section is not applicable to what we're doing, right? We're talking about having Texas reassert its status as a self-governing independent nation. Now, where that would apply would be in these, would have been called the 51st state movements, right? Whether it's the story you just talked about.
Oh,
in
in California,
County,
Jefferson,
right.
California, and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've had similar talk in Colorado. You've had discussions about upstate New York separating from New York City. So that particular section of the Constitution would apply directly to these 51st state movements, where they have to get consent of the Congress and the state itself. And look, that was a preventative measure. That was to prevent Congress, the federal government, from going in and erecting a brand new state, splitting up a state that was already established. Right? It was protecting the sovereignty of the state.
Yeah, you've been at this for a while now. What is it? When did you start this organization? 2015, was it?
Well, the organization was founded in 2005, but I've actually been working for independence since August 24th, 1996, right around 2 p.m.
Oh my gosh.
If you want to be exact.
Yeah, I think I might have been 65 back then, so that puts me at about 89 today. But help me out here a little bit, because what have you seen in terms of the progress, the polling, if you will? And listen, I don't want to, I'm trying to say this nicely. I'd rather you not, and I'm not saying you're going to do this, skew the polling, but because look, you can ask a question a certain way, and we all know the deal. You can get whatever result you really want. But give me it, Daniel. You're a straight shooter. Give it to me straight. What are the folks in Texas feeling today as opposed to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Yeah, just look, just a quick trip down memory lane. 2005, this issue was polling in single digits, right? The support for this was in single digits, but the good news is we've always polled higher than the approval rating of U.S. Congress, which typically polls somewhere right above or below that of leprosy, right? So you fast forward to 2009, there was a poll from Research 2000 asking if Texans thought that if Texas would be better off as an independent nation. You had a little less than half of Republicans. You had about 40% of independent voters and 15% of Democrats. Fast forward to 2014, Reuters Ipsos poll, right around the time of the Scottish independence referendum. The tipping happened. We had 54% Republicans, about half of independent voters, and 35% of Democrats. Then we just had this poll released by Survey USA at the beginning of last month that showed that if this thing goes to a vote tomorrow, it doesn't just win, it wins big.
Wow.
And it was 66% of all likely voters would vote Texas out. So look, we're in a really good position. It took a lot of work to get here, a lot of discussions, a lot of questions answered. But at the end of the day, the people of Texas can very clearly see that the best path forward for Texans is to become a self-governing independent nation.
Your message to Greg Abbott, has he been AWOL on this? What's your message to him?
Look, Greg Abbott's been AWOL on this issue since he was Attorney General. Back many sessions ago, back when David Dewhurst was Lieutenant Governor, he actually wanted to pursue putting this to a vote. That was the conversation that we had at the beginning of the session. But he didn't want to do it without the buy-in from Attorney General at the time, Greg Abbott. And Greg Abbott refused to even engage in it, not because of some firmly held belief or principle, but because he was afraid of how it would hurt his chances of running for governor when Rick Perry stepped down to go run for president. So, Greg Abbott is lovingly referred to by many people here as Governor Windsock. At the end of the day, if enough political pressure is put on Governor Greg Abbott, he will jump on board the Texas train and we will become independent.
Governor Windsock. Got it. Okay, next time we have him on the show, we'll make sure his lower third is Governor Windsock, and then he'll walk right off the set, even though he won't be on the set, he'd be on Skype or something like that. All right, I got to play you Roger Stone. I interviewed him, I don't know, a few weeks ago here on this very show. This was his reaction to my question about secession. Have a look. There's been talk in certain areas, well, actually it's been going on for a long time about, oh, we need to secede from the United States, you know, the Northern Jefferson stuff, the Texas stuff now. What do you think's going to potentially end up happening? Where are we going in this country? There's an ideological civil war right now. There's a geographical civil war. There's an informational civil war. We know all of that. Do we ever think a secession attempt could potentially happen in this country?
Well, I think we have to wait and see the results of the next election, perhaps the next two elections. If 50% of the people in the country are not convinced that the next election is free, fair, honest, and completely transparent, then I think that a secessionist movement in the country could pick up steam. Now you're going to be called a traitor if you even weigh that. But it's very clear that the values of people here, for example, in the state of Florida where I live, and the values of people in California or New York are very, very different.
Daniel, I think Roger's onto something. This feels like death by 1,000 paper cuts as it relates to the death of America by 1,000 paper cuts, and something needs to change.
Well, look, you know, what we're essentially talking about here is not the death of America. We're talking about the salvation of America. And it's just like I alluded to the last time we were together. You know, what we've got here is we've got a real big challenge with definition of words, right? We have the progressives and the left. They love to redefine words like, you know, oh, I don't know, male and female, right? But we also have a problem on our side of it. And that is we use the term America and the United States of America interchangeably. And America is that set of principles and values under which the Union was founded. But the United States of America is a political and economic construct, right? It is a union. It is exemplified by a federal government that has grown out of control and couldn't see the Constitution with the Hubble Space Telescope, right? So, you know, we're in a position here where it seems odd for people to wrap their heads around this, but for us to preserve what we think of as America, we may have to do so as self-governing independent nation states, right?
Yeah.
Divorce from a federal government that daily works to subvert and subjugate the people that it purports to represent and does everything it can to place itself in the role of God as the final arbiter of our rights and our liberties.
And there are a lot of citizens that absolutely agree with you, and there are a lot of citizens that are watching this show right now that 100% agree with you. You know who doesn't agree with you? You know, Steve Bannon. We've talked about that. We've talked
Right.
about this before. Now, hold on. Before you, I want to get the latest on you and Steve Bannon to see, because I mean, I want to pay for that debate. I'll do pay-per-view. I don't care. I'll pay $100. But here, just in case people don't understand, let me play. There's about a minute. Let me play this again, and then I want to get your reaction. Give us any update on the Steve Bannon situation. All right, here it is.
We even talk about succession when we control the country. What we have to do is turn that into political control. And we're right on the cusp of it. Any person in MAGA that ever mentions succession as any more than a left-wing fever swamp dream of what they want to do in Silicon Valley is hurting our movement. I am adamantly opposed to any discussion of it. We're not going to break this country up. The states are not going to secede. We fought that war 160 years ago. We're never going back. This is the United States. We have 12 or 13 generations of patriots that bequeath this nation to us. And for people who are sitting there and whining, well, this is so bad they control this. Hey, screw you. We're going to get to work. We're going to take this country back, and we're going to keep this country united like every patriot and every patriot's grave in the 13 or 12 generations that handed this country to us.
Well, Daniel, you've heard that before. Has the ball been moved forward at all? Have you had any contact with Steve Bannon about this?
Yeah, literally when we did the interview the other day and you guys played the clip, it was the first time I'd seen it. And Steve walked into production and was sitting right behind the camera when I was actually answering that very same question. But Steve, so when it was over with, I spoke with Steve, and he said, "You're not one of those secession guys, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm the secession guy." I generously offered to come onto his show to have a conversation, to have a debate. He said that he would be willing to do it. And look, this is the dialogue. I will tell you that the most reaction that I've gotten from people has been their utter disgust at being referred to as leftists by Steve. People that greatly respect Steve, but also understand the necessity for states to be having this conversation and for Texas to leave. And when Steve gets on there in his interview, and I understand kind of the point that he's coming from, but he's effectively echoing the same policy towards self-determination that's being promulgated by the Communist Chinese Party. And so people understand that there is a disconnect there.
Uh-oh.
If we believe what we believe,
Yeah.
if we believe in these principles of sovereignty and independence and these things that we have thought of as America, that people have fought and died to protect,
Right.
then we can no longer be yoked to a federal government in a post-constitutional United States that wants to do things like we saw at Mar-a-Lago the other night, or any host of things that have happened over the decades.
Daniel Miller, great to have you on the show. You just put Steve Bannon and the CCP in the same sentence, and not in a good way, by the way. That's okay. Bless your heart, and we will have you back. And we'll have Steve Bannon back, too. Thank you, sir. You're great.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right. Before we head to break, the liberal media just can't help themselves. Take a look at this. This from Bloomberg, so-called news. Bloomberg News, yeah, right. Blame election deniers for faltering consumer sentiment. Yes, it's our fault that the economy is so bad under Biden. So here's the warped quote. I want to read you this. Here it is. Quote, with about 70% of Republicans believing incorrectly that Joe Biden lost the 2020 presidential election when he won it by more than 7 million votes. Oh, give me a break. It's no wonder sentiment is similarly skewed against the 46th president, contributing to his low approval in public opinion polls. Republicans denying the 2020 election are easy prey for mischievous economic messaging. Silly me. I mean, I really should have known better. Joe Biden's economic disaster, it's not because of him or his policies, it's because we didn't vote for him. Yeah, that makes perfect sense from the libs. All right, look, anyhow, when it comes to the economy, how do we protect our money? That's really the question. Also, our savings. One of the options to consider is buying physical gold and silver, and don't read Bloomberg News. Also, the folks to talk to are at the Birch Gold Group. They are experts in precious metals. They've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of satisfied customers. I'm talking to my infomercial voice. You can buy gold coins, or you can convert an existing IRA into a gold IRA. I've just gotten more nasal. You can even convert an eligible 401k account to a gold IRA. Here's how you get started. You text America to 989898. Birch Gold's going to send you a free information kit, no obligation. They'll show you how to protect your gold and silver investments in a tax-sheltered account. Get the facts. Get started today. You've got nothing to lose. Text the word America to 989898 and get your free information kit from Birch Gold. They make it super easy. I feel like it's the 1970s. Super easy. Just text America to 9898 now. Find out how owning gold and silver could help protect your savings. And we're back in a moment with the last sip.